This is a McKillop podcast. Welcome to So What? Exploring big ideas and why they matter. We hope big ideas lead us to more love, more peace, and more beautiful connections in the world.
Well, welcome everyone to another episode of So What? We're so glad that you're joining us today. We're excited, Michael and I, to be joining Brent on a journey of big ideas and how they matter and how they land in our lives in practical ways. So welcome, Brent. Thank you for being with us and taking time to join us. And before we dive into the big idea, what do you want us to know about you as we join together today?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about something that I really love talking about, which is discomfort. And it stems from an interest I have in apathy and political organizing and progressive social justice movements. So I'm a instructor at the University of Lethbridge, and I teach in the social context of education, which are like essentially the social, historical, political aspects of education, teaching and learning in Alberta, which is a cool space to be a part of right now, and tumultuous. So it's all of those things at once. I was until this year a K-12 teacher and do lots of equity consulting with organizations. And I have been a part of the church community for many years. And as a queer person, have my own complex relationship with churches, but work a lot with either Catholic organizations or organizations that have a religious mandate or mission into what does it look like to be sparked into action. And so that's been a lot of my own exciting work. I'm a doctoral candidate in social justice, and my work is there in apathy and what inhibits us from doing social change. So we all often know what needs to be done, but we don't do it. And so I'm interested in that juncture that exists in between.
Well, that feels so relevant with everything that's happening.
Yeah, that's for sure.
We could just do like a whole nail 95 theses onto a door right now with all the stuff that's happening where we live here in Alberta and the States, and like these intersections of action that are needed for each other and for our planet. So the big idea is practicing discomfort. And that just feels discomforting. but I like to start off like really broad. What do you mean by practicing discomfort, and what would be what is discomfort for you, and how do you I'll just lay it out here broadly. How do you not practice discomfort in a toxic way? I'm sure there must be toxic discomfort. And then how is there like the healthy practice of discomfort where I hear what you're saying and leads us from apathy and indifference maybe to action?
Right. Yeah. That's a good, and I would say like the field is called affect theory, which is the cultural study of emotion. And it's essentially like, why are some feelings good feelings and some feelings bad feelings? And anyone who has like any version of chronic pain will tell you that they do mindfulness around like, what is a good feeling? Like, what is its texture? What is the difference between anxiety and joy? And you're like, you kind of actually get to this kind of philosophical point where you think, what is the difference? Like, one is bubbly, but in a good way. What makes it good? And so we get to these moments being like, right, I have coded these feelings socially and culturally. They are not by their essence bad or good affects. Instead, we have grown an intolerance to them because our culture prioritizes things like politeness, going along with power, et cetera, as to not like be a killjoy, or as Sarah Ahmed says, like a feminist killjoy, which is like, don't ruin the dinner party, or because we'll bring in affects. But it actually takes no more than like 3 seconds of curiosity, saying like, well, what does make that discomfort so bad, to be like, right, what is discomfort? And I would say, you know it, and have known it all the time. You are uncomfortable all of the time, usually, but you are willing to sit with that discomfort, but not collective discomfort or discomfort that involves other people. You will, in fact, stay married for many years. You will stay in a religion. You will stay in a job for decades in order to avoid discomfort, as if you weren't in discomfort that entire time.
Yeah.
So oftentimes people will say, well, how do we gain a capacity for discomfort? I would say you have a huge capacity for discomfort. You do it all the time.
Wow.
That's kind of my like anti-answer, if that plays out.
Sure. Like, what would discomfort be like in one's body? Like, how would you unpack that, like somatically, intellectually, emotionally?
It's like, it is both a interesting exercise, and I often ask people, like, how useful is it? Because we get to this point where we're like drawing it as if we're in an episode or the movie of Inside Out. And these feelings actually are less about what they actually are and more representations or symbols of those feelings. So we might say, like, what does it feel like? And you say, it's jumpy and bubbly, and you're personifying something that is abstract. We're now actually losing the essence of what it is. It doesn't actually take much mindfulness to realize that maybe there are no bad feelings, or those who do internal family systems would say there's no bad parts, which is like, there is no part of this work where discomfort is bad. In fact, I would argue, if we are giving moral codes to bad and good for feelings, the worst feeling we can be in is, or if these feelings really are bad or good, the discomfort from like 10 years of staying in the same job and listening to your boss like talk about women in a sexist way, versus the 5 seconds of discomfort, which shoots up, it's at a crescendo, and then every second after that, it goes down. I would say, like, if one of those is bad, I think the answer for most logically is the former. But the difference about discomfort is that when discomfort mixes with power, it becomes apathy. So when it's about your boss, it's not hard to choose discomfort when all things benefit you. So you yell at your kid to get the thing done that you ultimately want done. Or you're telling yourself, oh, I need to go to the gym because, well, no matter which way you go, right, the discomfort ultimately benefits you. But discomfort changes its affective terrain, like its emotional map, when you start incorporating power. The riddle of that is that power is invisible, and power actually thrives off of complacency. So once discomfort actually meets power, like all fears, it realizes that it is powerlessness. And the power actually begins to disintegrate as the comfort rises.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So what I hear you saying is, I choose discomfort in my life on a regular basis. I have a huge capacity for it. I have a discomfort for not filing my my stuff online to get a rebate, and I can live with that. And so I'm trying to think of an example quickly here. And but also then I have discomfort around power too, or working with intersections where maybe my privilege or even my power might be affected too. And there's a discomfort with that, or discomfort of actually meeting power and saying something to power instead. And I take that discomfort and then I go to apathy. Is that what I hear you suggesting?
Yes. And we'll often say things like, we've weaponized therapy speak to be like, it's, I don't have capacity, or like, it's not within my wheelhouse, et cetera, to justify why we're, scrolling past videos of like genocide or Palestine. We'll be like, oh, it will actually come up with every excuse, but we know the answer, I would say, to a lot of those. Like, we'll do everything but avoid discomfort. In fact, we'll be like, oh, well, Palestine and Israel, it's so nuanced. And it's like, really? You do a land acknowledgement every time you have a board meeting. Like, it doesn't seem nuanced. We believe that like it has everything to do with society and nothing to do with us. So like, well, what am I to do about colonization? And I say, like, there's actually a huge book called The Truth and Reconciliation Commission that actually just lays it out for you. And you're like, well, I don't know, is it my place? So you like, there is no amount of excuses that exist to stay in apathy, because apathy is a structure. You're an individual. You have to separate from apathy or from the structure in order to feel justified in your apathetic response. Because if we're actually tapping into our humanness, like, it is impossible to scroll past that video in Palestine or to think about genocide as anything other than like absolute violence against humankind. And we're faced with like the trauma of the world, and that feels really heavy. And we're not meant to deal with the entire trauma of the world on an individual level, but because we see ourselves as like my individual discomfort, it's all about the individual. Whereas like it actually wouldn't be uncomfortable at all if you banded together with like a couple dozen people and said something. But because we have such an individualist culture, apathy feels like our response. And like the only viable response, because what are you going to do? You're just one person. Which is like anthropologist Margaret Mead would say, like, never underestimate the power of people to make change. In fact, it's the only thing that has. And if we think in our head of any real change that has actually happened in the socio-political arena, it has been through discomfort. And so the most obvious answer is like violence and the history of country war and interregional war across the global north and south. But we can also think that like anytime you have had a breakthrough with your partner, that you have had a heart to heart with someone, that you have asked for a raise, that you asked someone to marry you, they like the prerequisite to all of those things was discomfort. So you actually know it cerebrally, but the feeling is so dangerous. And then when I say what is so dangerous about it and you can't name it, it makes it sound like a bedtime monster. Like it's almost totally in your head, which is.
Wow. Yeah, no, it reminds me of the, a couple get together and someone cooks a dish for them and the one person doesn't want to hurt their feelings. So they eat it and say how much they love it. And 40 years later, they're still getting the same dish they hate because they never wanted to approach the discomfort of disappointing the person. And they finally have enough courage to finally say, I'm sorry, but I've never liked this dish.
Right.
Wow.
And then here's the biggest riddle to it is the person cooking the dish says, I've hated the dish the whole time too. And now suddenly you're like, well, oh shit, now we only have so many meals left together.
That's right.
So I'm like, you tell me what a purposeful life is in that pursuit. Do you live the 40 years hating the dish, but not saying anything? Or do you say something, it changed? Here's the difference. The relationship that goes to the discomfort crescendo and then finds its way down. And folks from like the Gottman Institute or any relational therapy would say that's called rupture and repair. So it's all about like, we've had a conflict and then we repair the relationship, strengthens actually. But if I don't say anything about the meal that I don't like ever, the discomfort rises and actually the rupture is also happening simultaneously because this now becomes the conduit for our relationship, which is a lie, right? Every single day I rejoin this lie in the pursuit of comfort, because that's the most important thing. And so the repair actually strengthens the relationship. But what's funny, we'll often give the anecdote to discomfort, like, oh, I don't want to ruin this relationship. Or in capitalist or works places, it's called burning a bridge. Like, I don't want to burn a bridge, anything to do that. And I am here to say, like, your bridge was made of straw anyway, right? Like, it couldn't bear anything. If it can't handle discomfort, you don't have a relationship, you have a contract. if a truly strong bridge is made only through rupture, that is real rapport.
Mm.
And we know if authentic equity and diversity is to happen, we need to have real psychological safety. That actually is the prerequisite to having daring conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well, I don't know. Nobody has said anything. I don't think race is a problem in our institution. I'm like, right, because no one wants to be uncomfortable. Well, why is that? Because no one's psychologically safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
So it becomes like a double-edged sword insofar that the data you get is like, well, race isn't an issue. I'm like, yeah, because they're even scared on an anonymous form
Yeah.
that it could come back to them. So like there is something in the room with us. And I often say that thing is the invisible hand of power. Like it's like always watching you. It's like the reason why, you know, when you take a sick day, you don't really want to go out to get a Starbucks, even though nobody cares. It's always there. It's controlling you.
Mhm.
And it's the same part of you that's like, I don't want to reshare this. I don't want to look political. It's always disciplining you.
Mhm.
And you control it, or it's so arbitrary, but you control it by being like, okay, yeah, you're right. I won't bring it up. I won't send the email. I won't do this. You're training your nervous system that we run from discomfort.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as I'm listening to you, I'm aware that this discomfort has 10,000 faces, doesn't it? And I remember, you know, just reflecting even on my own upbringing, making somebody else feel bad was probably the worst thing that you could do. And it was this driven into me that I had this amazing superpower to control how people felt about the world and about themselves and so forth. And so everything was always keep your mouth shut. And if you didn't, there was consequences for doing that. And I can even, I can think of instances even over the last 6 months where I have spoken up, but the vulnerability or the systemic guilt that's been pounded into me is like, oh, okay, well, I'll just wilt and I'll keep my mouth shut until I can't stand it any longer. And then I rinse and repeat. But it's just fascinating, just all the different faces and the way that it shows up in a plethora of circumstances. And it could be just different buttons for different people, isn't it?
Yes. And my impulse response even to you is to say it's not your fault.
Mhm.
Like to relieve you of any badness or bad feelings, because we just don't have the capacity for it. It's not your fault. Don't worry. It's not you. It's a cultural problem. Anything to disembody from the collective response of discomfort. It's actually a very normal response to respond to genocide with discomfort. But we say like, that's the system. It's not on you. You're one person. Just keep going. We like know this all the time with toxic positivity when it relates to a friend going through grief. But I'm like, I think there's also a toxic positivity on a social and cultural level where we refuse to acknowledge that things are bad, and insofar like that we would do anything about them. Like we have to actually disembody a bit in order for this to feel doable. We have to, we numb out. And that's actually a pretty valid and reasonable response to like a global crisis, to numb out. The problem is we stick there. We stay there. And the only thing that can move us is discomfort. It is the only thing on the gas pedal. And tell me, you can stop me. Can I share this one thing I want to show you?
Yeah. Please.
It's my favorite thing, and it's transformative learning theory, which is essentially the way that people come to understand earnest and valid social movement change. So the first thing that happens in transformative learning is a disorienting dilemma. So something that disrupts your cultural homeostasis. Let's say like Black Lives Matter, right? George Floyd, 2020, disorienting dilemma.
Yeah.
Number 2 and 3 start working in tandem with each other. Oh my God, the world is so racist. Number 3, critical assessment of society. Number 2, wait, am I racist? Wait, did I
Yes.
contribute to it? So they're working to get a critical and self-assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 4, you get to anti-Black racism is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you hit something called the apathy threshold, which most people stay in. You go back from recognition of, wow, anti-Black racism is a problem.
Yeah.
Enacted by white supremacy, disorienting dilemma. Oh, I see this other event that happened in Vancouver against this community. That's disorienting. Wow, the world is messed up.
Yeah.
Critical. What did I play in that? Did I say anything? I recognize the world is upset. Disorienting dilemma happens again. And you stay in this stage. This is called the existential phase. So coming to grips with the fact that the world exists on this really harmful level. And we recognize, in fact, let's start here. Disorienting dilemma. There's a graveyard and Kamloops of all these students.
Yeah.
Critical assessment. Wow, residential schools was really, really violent.
Mm-hmm.
Self-assessment. Wait, what role did my ancestors play in that?
Mm-hmm.
Recognition. This is really messed up. And recognition stops with like land acknowledgements oftentimes, or just, and we stay here and we say, why do I feel so existential?
Well, and that you could like climate change could be added to this. You could add the book banning in Alberta and what's happening to trans youth. I mean, you could just keep adding. So the coal mining and the Crow's Nest Pass, if we're really local, I mean, just what's happening in the United States. I just, so many, you could just add up this list and you just keep going around and around.
I know. It really applies to everything. And, some people say that I will often say, well, you know what, Trevor, at least you recognize it. At least you recognize it, as if that is the climax. And lots of people would be like, great, I'm glad we're doing land acknowledgements. Or people say, well, I'm glad we're acknowledging, and recognizing the way that anti-Black racism works against people. There is so much merit in that, and I totally get it. But the important part of recognition is it is a non-act in a way. Like it doesn't really do anything because apathy threshold keeps you within. Step 5, which is exploration, is what Indigenous communities can I give my resources back to? How can I redistribute? Where can I, start to learn more about this? And I would say 5, we rarely get there on 5. It has to be a pretty big social issue for us to pick up, be like, I'm going to learn about Israel, Palestine. 5 is exploration. And so people will often say, well, isn't the apathy threshold after 5? And I am saying, I am just happy sometimes to get to 5 or see folks go to 5 when it's like, I'm going to learn about the climate crisis outside myself. Because remember that some people get a disorienting dilemma, the climate crisis, and they don't enter critical or self-examination. It's not real. I can't handle it. Disorienting dilemma, queer and trans kids, that's not something my faith deals with. That's not something that my culture does. We don't even make it to 2. So the apathy threshold at 4 is generous because very rarely do we see people even going to 5.
Right.
Everything in this light green here, and it's called the experimental phase. Here's the thing about experiments. You have to fail in experiments. You never knock it out of the park.
Right.
Unfortunately, I would love that if we could, you know what I mean? But the exploration requires you to try a course of action.
Which is more discomfort
then.
then.
Mess it out. More
discomfort.
What gets you over the apathy threshold, that arrow, is discomfort. It is the only thing that propels you from 4 into 5. You do not exist. So trying a course of action from the exploration means that you, let's say, okay, I'm going to learn about all of the different ways that, the climate crisis is affecting my community. So you actually start to acquire new knowledge and try on, test different roles. Maybe you are trying on the role of recycling. You're trying on the role of, stating pronouns. It's provisional. It's experimental.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes people will stop here at 8 again, because I tried on the role and I felt discomfort. I did it wrong. I messed up the land acknowledgement. I, said the wrong thing. I was incorrect about a fact. Someone, was better than me. I stopped.
Yeah.
I stop at piloting provisional roles.
Yeah.
But the only,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I just think, someone dished our idea of putting solar panels in our house, or someone got upset because I had pronouns on my
Yes,
jacket. Like,
I've learned my lesson.
yeah.
I've learned my lesson, not again, right? So I'm going to stop at 8. Here's where earnest action comes from. At 9, I build trust and confidence, not competence. 9, the only people who get to 9 are those in psychologically safe spaces.
Mm.
I've got trust and confidence in the room that when we fumble, it's going to be great. I am not looking for us to be competent. If I wait for competence, I'll be waiting forever. Because I have built trust now in the system that we get to try things on, we get to test things out, we get to pilot ideas, we explore together. All of those things come into play when we get to 9.
Right.
And then 10 is I reintegrate into the system. Now together, group, let's take this into the streets. New disorienting dilemma. And then you retry again and again. And it's cyclical. People will say, well, then when do you reach the finite moment? When is all things solved? I would say never. But right now we're excited to get to even 2, number 2.
Right.
Many progressives or seemingly progressives will maybe get to 4 or 5. And they're like, I'm only halfway there. And I say, of course, why do you think you feel so existential? Like, why does it not actually feel satisfying if we're talking about good or bad affects? Why does it not feel satisfying what you're doing every single day on your phone? Because you're stuck in the existential phase. Of course, you're not even halfway there. And there's no shame to that. But you're expecting, well, why am I not feeling better? Because you are the system. You are the system. So, but we do it as like, that's the system, that's me, I'm subject structure. But instead, what transformative learning does is it takes the subject and makes them a part of the structure. I feel like I'm in this endless loop of society. I am society.
Yeah, subject to subject relationship is much different than a subject to object relationship. And you have to take responsibility then. You can't project it or transfer it out. Like, there's nothing I could, like I heard you say, I heard this from lots of people on numbers things. Well, it's nothing I can do. It's too big for me.
Right.
All those things.
Our main impulse is to be like, we'll do actually anything. We'll come up with any excuse other than to act. Right. And they really feed it to us at some point on Instagram. They say, click the link. You can donate. Literally just click it. Just $2. We don't even want your name. You're like, well, how do you know these days what info is legit? Like you'll really go anywhere other than making action because it's you and the problem. And the problem's always structural and you're always innocent and individual. But we are the system. And that's in and of itself a huge change because we're afraid that the system will discipline us. But we are the ones disciplining each other when it comes to comfort. And so you just have to be the one to get the ball rolling. And I often say discomfort will unfold itself when it is first modeled that it's safe to do so. Who is the person to do that? The one with the most power, but really it can be anyone.
Yeah, so there are a couple things, if I can enter.
Please.
Like what I'm hearing you say is almost like I have an internal disciplinarian myself that keeps me immobilized with my connection to the system. And so I'll self-regulate myself without even needing the system to do it. Like, we're sort of so worried, for example, like the latest news coming out is the reporter who reported on the Alberta Health Services mismanagement is now been doxxed, I guess is the right word. So we're worried that's what the system's going
Mm,
to do to us because they went through discomfort reporting
right.
mismanagement and maybe corruption. But the first step is I'm the one that's doing it to myself the whole time to keep myself from doing anything.
Don't worry about the system. You're policing yourself enough. It
Hmm.
actually never needs to work.
Yeah.
You're getting in your own way enough that it really doesn't even need to be in the room.
Mm.
In fact, isn't that neoliberalism's biggest riddle? You're the individual thinking I'm powerless when you are the one keeping you from that.
Yeah.
Because we along the way of this transformative learning journey, we think in fallacies. We need expertise to move to the next step, competence.
Yeah.
We need power to move to the next step, perceived power, right? And often we will say we need comfort. Like, I don't know, I couldn't really comment on Israel Palestine because you don't know enough. You will never meet those prerequisites. You will never, no point exists. In fact, we'll often say, well, when I'm, when I'm a director, when I'm CEO, when I'm VP, when I'm CEO, like, in fact, the riddle is the higher up you go, the less like you are actually to enact any real change.
Right.
So there's always more comfort, more power, more competence to be had, but they're never coming. We have to sit in the ability that we're going to do this work and it's going to fail. You're going to do it wrong. You're going to mispronounce a thing. You're going to say the acronym wrong. And that those are vital steps to moving on the transformative journey. I think people would push back on that and be like, no, I can't change. My boss is in charge of me. And so there's tension on both ends of this argument.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess what I'm reflecting back to is probably the first time that I had experience with you, Brent, and
Right.
at a seminar you putting on at McKillop. And what I so appreciated about your presentation, which the countless other similar presentations, is that you were so deliberate about creating that safe space. So it's like, it's okay, you're going to screw up. Yeah, you're going to. There are no dumb questions, right? Like you spend a lot of time crafting that space for folks with a variety of different experiences to be able to come and have some measure of safety to risk to ask a question and to engage. So I see how that works, and I appreciate that. And that's something I'd like to get better at. You talked about the Instagram thing, and it's like just click here for $2 and so forth. And I get that, but to some degree, there's some wisdom there too, in a sense of, if I'm understanding you correctly, that there's a wisdom that we don't want to be scammed. And so along that sort of line, I'm thinking about this apathy threshold, and just in my own experience and folks I've been talking with, and there's other things I think that really push people back. It's when you start compounding different issues, for example, stacking issue on issue, that can be overwhelming for folks, and give people rationale, reason to not support, to step back from, to retreat. So, for example, just a local pride thing that we're involved with, a number of unfortunate things kind of happen, in that, the sole goal of this is to come together to celebrate and to provide support and encourage LGBTQ folks. But then it almost, so you've got diverse folks there, or people who are of goodwill who come to that. But they share that wanting to support LGBTQ people. And then you have someone who makes a speech that is extraordinarily hyperbolically political. And then you've got people going, oh, this is a little bit too far for me. And then you've got somebody who might say something like, well, then if we're going to burn any books, we might as well burn the Bible. And
And
that's making some other well-meaning people go, I, I'm sure for queer folks, and my cousin or my brother might be queer, but I'm not sure that I want to be
yeah,
in relationship to this kind of organization. And so my
yeah,
concern is that you have this pool of well-meaning people
right,
um, who technically are the easiest ones to draw
right.
and see them convert to allies, if you will.
Hmm.
But we inadvertently push them away, and it seems to me that seems to contribute somehow to the apathy threshold, and it's maybe in our own way shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Like I had just I so I'm just trying to figure
Yeah.
that out. I'm trying to help encourage folks that have come to me and said, "Whoa, I love what you're doing,
Hmm.
but no, we're not doing that." You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yep. Because it's like we're so in this hyper fragile political moment that any
Oh, good.
type of feedback, we're like,
Yeah.
nope, not handling it. In fact, I just need compliments. Like our inability to handle feedback is deeply related for our ability to handle discomfort. Whereas
Mhm,
like, oh, you're trying to change society.
mhm.
Like we might imagine feedback and doing things wrong would be a prerequisite. But I agree. Like it takes one comment for me to be like, I'm never touching that again.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have to like defamiliarize ourselves with that intense pull to say that, oh, 1 inch of feedback is going to stop me from this movement. Because
Mhm,
if that were the case, right, then like we imagine ourselves as not acting as neutral, but you're feeding into a movement every day with
yeah.
capitalism, colonialism,
Mhm,
all of those things.
yeah.
And the feedback is it sucks and you hate it and you're okay sitting with that feedback.
Hmm.
But when the feedback is changed to decolonize, we're like, well, I can't handle it. I don't want to do it wrong, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm,
And so we can handle feedback and we know what good feedback is and bad feedback is. And,
mhm.
for that person to hyperbolize and like shut that down, I get it. There's room for anger in these movements.
Mhm.
And when we come to like, I have these ideas of like convince or compromise.
Okay.
Anger is more in the spirit of convincing someone,
Hmm.
but we need to do this work and compromise together. It's not about necessarily, and compromise is always going to feel uncomfortable. Compromise is going to feel like you never win
Mhm.
because it means meeting in the middle. It means I was wrong about this, but are you willing to hear me about that? Like
Yeah.
the prerequisite to those things is I'm willing to be wrong to
Mhm.
compromise. But if you're not willing to be wrong, then you're not willing to experiment, which we know
Mhm.
is necessary in order to change society.
Yeah.
So the bedrock of these is discomfort. And also, like, I would say in that moment, because that person is maybe being like, this is the be all end all queer person, whatever they say goes. And I would say, what if you went into exploration
Mhm.
and heard different voices?
Yeah. Yeah.
What if you then, in the experimenter's mind, tried on a course of action? Let's just try it that way. And then you develop like, oh, maybe that is true or not true. But
Mhm.
because I'm in community, I can try things on. I'm going to reintegrate, try again.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But I think because we're like, oh, well, Brent is the only, queer person I know. So whatever he says, that is the case. And I messed up. I'm like, those are all moral systems. This is not the code for a moral system. This is the code for social transformation.
Hmm.
And so if
Okay.
you are looking to be pure and get unattainable purity, which is what moral systems are built on, whether it's your own
Mhm.
internalized racism or sin, you will
Mhm.
never reach that point,
Right.
and you will always need to ask for forgiveness, right?
Mhm.
And we can understand that theologically, but we struggle sometimes to understand it politically. Like, oh, forgiveness and messing up, and like, you're going to die and this work is not going to be done.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And there is like a deep forgiveness in that like I'm trying along the way, you know? Um, because when I think about purpose and spirituality, I think about like I would rather get to that deathbed with scars and bruises and good memories and a couple limbs cut off, with good people surrounding me saying, we did a couple laps of this, hey? Versus like, good thing I stayed at 4 unscathed because I thought it was safer to do so.
And paradoxically,
And I would tell,
it isn't safer.
no, in fact, like, if we think this is safe, I'm like, some of us have anxiety disorders. This isn't safe. This is like, half of us are in therapy every other week doing CBT and like 5 things I can hear, 4 things I can touch, trying to be like, oh, this is a normal meeting. I'm like, or we could like step into the discomfort of trying on provisional roles, experimenting, etc. And there we might like rehearse a world otherwise. But I can only do that when I'm safe. Right. And to those people, I would say like safe is pretty low bar. Unsafe and uncomfortable are different. Uncomfortable is like, that's good. Actually, your learning edges are stretching, right? We talked about like, that discomfort actually makes it stretch. Unsafe is like, we need to make a plan for you to stay in the room. So a lot of times I say, you are safe. You can do discomfort. But we've like now created language like, it's just a boundary, or I don't have capacity. And to which for some things, I'm like, find it. Find the capacity. Like you tap into your internal reservoirs the same way you did when you had kids or a job that overworked you. You found the energy. Find the energy to care about colonization. And like, you can do that uncomfortable thing. Yeah. Which is tough to tell people.
Yeah. It, in some ways, the image, like from an individual level that pops up for me is learning to ride a bike. It's, suddenly you notice all your friends are riding bikes and you're going to be left behind. And so you realize, oh, what am I going to do? You get to that threshold and like, do I learn it? Do I not? Like, and then once you get on a bike, you have to explore. You fall down, you skin your knees sometimes. You have to take the training wheels off. Like there's this whole iterative process of getting better at your bikes. And it does sometimes take community too. There's somebody that's holding the bike for you. And you suddenly you realize they're not holding it and you're doing it on your own. But we won't allow ourselves to do that for the big issues
because they're too big.
Well, that's what we say. They're too big.
Right. They're too big. And I'm like, how big? Describe to me. Describe to me how big. If you can give me feet, inches, or height, it's actually not about bigness. It's about how much you've made it.
Yeah.
Like you have made it this big, but you can't actually quantify it against me in any way, shape, or form. So it's actually not about size. It's about perception. And you say, well, it's so big. What if I fail? I say, let's count on it. Let's count on you failing. Wouldn't it be great to get on the bike and you just crush it from day one? You're like, see you, Dad. I'm going to the bike store. As if, then you explore, you try it out. Okay, now you get it. Oh, disorienting dilemma. Now I need to learn turns and how to stop.
Sure.
That's going to require more and more. And guess what? I get more comfortable biking. The more that I do it.
Yes.
That's the riddle. And that's why they often say, like, after a bike accident or a car accident, drive home. Like after you go to the pound or whatever it is, drive home, because then you will never touch it again. It becomes too prickly. And that is where we're at politically, where like people are not even talking about QS, LGBTQIA plus people because they're like, I don't want to do it. That's why I say queer and trans and two-spirit, because it feels so prickly. And I'm like, it's just a bike and we'll be behind you. But it feels big, but it's actually not big. You can't describe how big it is.
But maybe it shouldn't be. But the containers you're talking about are novel, right? So we live in a culture that seems where the worst thing you could do is fail, flop, right? Crash, make a mistake, right? So everybody spends all their time trying to avoid that or hide it or cover it up. And here you're talking about a culture that expects it, celebrates it, champions it, and leverages it, right? So it just seems even more foundationally a shift culture-wise. That
Huge.
Yeah,
Huge. It's a tall order. I don't
yeah.
negate that. Here's what I'll say.
Maybe that's what the part that we need to be working on as the foundation, as the milieu of all the other stuff we're working with. There's a question there.
And you know how to fail. You've done it all the time. In fact, any movement you've had in your life has been because of failure.
Hmm.
Any growth has already come from failure, as if you don't know it, as if like it is actually required, which is why I start all of these sessions off by saying, this is Brent, A+ student. This is also Brent, failure. All of these things that have failed me, that have taught me so much. I've only learned when I failed. And so that's what I say. I either win or I learn, right?
Yeah.
Because failure's actually quite literally not an option because it doesn't exist. Not because I'm always going to pass. I actually count on me failing. I count on me failing as indicative of doing the job with intent and authenticity. I can be sure that if I am not feeling discomfort or failure, I am not being a meaningful ally. Like, it requires my failure. And we hyperbolize everything like, well, I'm going to get fired and I'm going to get canceled and all of these things. Well, what about when someone failed you? What did really all they need to say? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to do better.
Yeah. Yeah. Or learn better or.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the love of God, learn. Don't waste it.
Right. Learn, like we refuse to learn. We refuse to be, and we know what are the conditions for learning, but we just refuse. We have to either crush it from day one or we're totally not going to enter the arena.
Yeah. What?
Shame is huge.
I'm curious from your experience and your teaching on this and exploring this is why do we need such a level of pressure sometimes? I guess David Schnartz, who does I call it couple relationship stuff, talks about a crucible of pressure. Like until there's enough pressure, a lot of people will not flip from apathy into discomfort. Like sometimes we need just such a pressure bomb to move from, I guess, on your chart from say 4 to exploration around so many things. Like, what is it? I always hope that we could proactively not have to have so much rupture. Like, because by the time you get to that much pressure, like either around any of the social action and personal stuff, the pressure's created a lot of rupture.
Right. I actually would go so far as to say the amount does not matter. Like, if this isn't the amount, I don't know what it is. Like, the amount of seeing someone misgendered in front of you is the only amount you need to act. Like, we are seeing bombings. Our earth is literally, coming apart. Yeah. Our countries are. The limit actually is clear, or at least it is to me now, like, doesn't exist. I can't imagine what it would take. Like, the host of The Apprentice is now the president of our biggest economic player in the world, right? So I would go so far as to say, like, the amount doesn't exist. In fact, like, I feel like a few months ago, there was this thing on like aliens coming down. I'm like, sure. Like, what's next? Really, I could almost feed you anything on your feed and it kind of wouldn't matter. There is no amount actually of rupture. And if people say, well, that's insurmountable, that's then like, what do we do? That further paralyzes me. I come back to this really incredible model of like, it's really the smallest things. And, like when we think of words, like, where are you really from? That make language, ideas, which makes beliefs about who's a citizen, which makes values about who gets to own land, which makes norms about who works where immigrants work, which makes culture and divisiveness, which make laws that immigrants shouldn't be allowed it. And so you're saying at the very bottom, I'm just saying, tell the person, what do you mean when you say, where are you really from? You can do that. And that takes 3 seconds of difficultness at the water cooler, at the office. That's more manageable. In fact, this Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is a social change model, right? When we say words like stop being, a bitch or whatever, or a pussy, all of those things build up to make language, ideas around what that is, beliefs around women's bodies, values about where women should be, norms about their role in society, culture, if they should be out without men, law, they're not in control of their bodies.
Right.
So all I'm saying is when, the uncle or whatever says that at Thanksgiving, stop being such a pussy, that you say, you block it right there. That's more doable. And so it's these small things that make up the laws that we see. We hear something like, oh, Roe v. Wade. We're like, how did that happen? I'm like, how did you let that slip at the water cooler?
Yeah.
Right? Like it is that. And when we look sociologically, we see at the bottom, the micro, the meso and the macro. This is the social level at the water cooler. This is the cultural and the political. So yes, I recognize that seeing something like, this book ban on books against, like, it feels unattainable. But step one is saying like, oh, I'm going to say the word queer today. And that can build up to a loan. So as accumulative as those things can create oppression, they can accumulatively also work against it. And that's bite-sized. That we can digest.
So you're saying that the practice of, say, 30 seconds of discomfort to say to the uncle, that word is inappropriate.
3 seconds.
3 seconds. And then
3
maybe
Mississippis. Yeah.
3 Mississippis, and maybe then the silence that comes around the table.
I would say after the 3 Mississippis, it actually will go down.
Down. Because the discomfort, most likely, unless it's a homogeneous table, is sitting there long after of not saying anything.
Oh, of course. And actually, the real discomfort comes from the internal qualm within you, sitting there while we're passing the peas and he goes along. That's the real tragedy. That's the real discomfort. Like, you can handle discomfort. You do it all the time, in fact.
Yeah.
But one of them will release, and one of them will accumulate. And so I say, start on that word level. And then if that's the first time, oh, I guess you're right. Because, what am I saying when I say those type of people? And you actually get it at ideas, and you have a dialogue here in the social, which is much more manageable.
And realizing that you might fail doing it, or you might not, or you'll learn again, or like the whole process that will be part of that simple exercise of taking 3 Mississippis to say something around, someone at the dinner table saying that's so gay, for example.
Right. Totally.
And
totally. Which I'm like, you said you might, let's count on it. You will fail.
You will.
Let's expect it. And that when you do fail, you're going to expect the feeling, and then you're going to deal with it by just feeling it. That's all we mean by the work we often talk about in therapy. Ask any therapist. It's feeling it is the work. It's not some like nebulous thing. Feel the thing. You have all the tools within you already to do this work. You have just lost access to them. You know how to pause someone. I don't know what you mean there. I think when you say this, you mean something else. Can I budge in there? And actually, now I have a table full of rapport, psychological safety. My other version is just contracts and transactions.
Yeah.
Trevor says this, he's that racist guy at work, this homophobic uncle. And I'm like, well, we don't have rapport. We've got a contract then. But actually pausing, uncle, I know you to be better than that. My best friend is gay. Yeah, you know what I mean. And I don't say it. You actually get braver as you go along and will begin to trust yourself and your nervous system. The highest point was saying, I don't know what you mean by that.
Right.
Like the words don't have to be like, stop your homophobia. It just say more about that. Like create pause, which is like the most micro of micro social moments is all it takes. But it feels like a mountain. And I am here to say, altogether, it is a mountain. I agree. I don't refute that truth, but I'm not asking you to climb it. I'm asking you to join me up here, up and down the first half of the hill. And honestly, that is going to make the hills you die on much far and few between, because there won't be massive hills. There will just be bumps. What is a easier path to travel for many years? Multiple bumps, ups and downs, some uneven roads, right? What is not doable? Big mountains every day. Yes. Sorry, that's a lot of sociological theory, but I think it's important for us to see how it manifests in our day-to-day rather than be like, yeah, I don't know, I just flip by.
Yeah. What I want to ask is, have you written a book that we can study and learn those skills, regain those skills?
Yeah. Well, I would love to. I'm making a textbook called Gender and Sexuality in Education, Controversy, Culture, and a Curriculum in Crisis, because we are so scared of touching this work when, like, really everything we talked about, you could apply to, climate crisis, indigeneity, and race relations, and you would talk to those people in those communities to infuse their lived experience. But this is a decent framework for understanding discomfort, which is the prerequisite to those conversations. So I'm going to make it open access, which means you do not buy the textbook. Everyone has a right to it. And I would love to put some of this in there because it isn't a useful framework, not only for social movement, for any change in any organization. And you can refer back to this as much as you want or need to.
Yeah, that sounds good.
No, this has been like,
it's very good.
Ooh, like these are, in terms of, when I say big ideas, I don't make that a bad thing. They're just, there's depth to it. There's complexity. And you've led us on this amazing journey where we could just like have 5 more episodes of talking to you, to be honest.
But it's been like, it's so liberating too, just in a sense that, having these braving moments and then retreating back and flagellating yourself. Like, why don't you just keep your damn mouth shut? You're always causing troubles and so forth. And just even this conversation has helped tease that apart. And it's like, you're not going out to be a jerk. Like, you're not going out necessarily to burn everything to the ground.
No.
But some stuff you just can't let slide and still remain the best of what it is to be human.
So to end our time, to help it land, because we always like to, big ideas. So what? I mean, like, so we're at a family dinner table. We're at a water cooler at work. We're at the gym. I don't know, we're at the bar. We're at a sports game. We're walking with a friend's dogs. Whatever the topic is, something comes up where we just know, like, we feel that visceral discomfort somatically in our bodies. It's like, I would say the word sort of gross or maybe even, I think anger's discomfort too, boundary being, do you have like 2 or 3 or 4 phrases that help us, like we pause, like you said, like a pause helps the nervous system of each person, sort of, like something really practical to help us start the conversation, which will cause rupture a little bit, but then repair.
Yes. The longer you wait, the worse it will get. Like we can count on you waiting. You will come up with every excuse why, like, you know what, if they're from a different generation, they're a different culture. I don't really know them. In fact, like we could go on for hours about why we won't act. When you make the decision ahead of time, you take out the qualm completely. Oh, the feeling comes up. I know what to do in this situation. For me, I sometimes struggle being like, Trevor, that was wrong. I instead say, my first one is, say more. What do you mean by that?
Say more. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Say more. What do you mean by that? Oh, I just mean that, like, aren't men and women, different? And then I will often say, yes, I can get behind that, but that's different than what you said. So it will actually help people get clear about the language that they're making on that micro and social level. And it gives you a moment to say, this is shared between us. I am not the discipliner and Trevor's not the disciplinee. In doing so, we create knowers and knowees on social justice movements. And so you're now just going to wait for my approval as Brent, who is more woke than Trevor. No, instead what we're doing is say more. Oh, I meant this. That's different from what you said. It's shared now. Now we've both got skin in the game and it's about us together rather than you trying to reach my level of purity, which is always going to be like this, where we play cat and mouse all day. So I make the decision ahead of time. I'm going to pause, beat, question. Because that moment of curiosity is sometimes all we need to actually be like, no, I didn't mean it. Let's get intentional about how we make culture, right? From the social.
And that's a beautiful example right up at the beginning. Because one of the first questions she had, Trevor, was talking about toxic discomfort. And as Brent just described it here, it's that invitation, yes, to discomfort, but excuse the term, it has the best possibility to bear good fruit, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Right. So it's that good discomfort. It's that good trouble, as John Lewis might say.
Let's all say goodbye. I just want to say more. What do you mean? I want to hold that in my transformative learning practice. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brent.
If you are enjoying this podcast, please like it, subscribe, consider rating it, and sharing it with family and friends. This podcast is produced by McKillop, Living Sacred Relationships.